it's important. They are a social animal. They're supposed to be a companion to us. They're not supposed to be one of us. So understanding that they're our companions and they should be included in our life, but they need clear directions, guidelines and boundaries so they know how we expect them to behave in that life.
Welcome to the Pawsome Companion, where pets are part of our family. I'm your host, Joanna Herrera, the founder of Coco and Van Dyk. I'm very excited to interview experts and pet owners to share their stories and insights so you can use them to take care of your babies. Hi, Amy. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So tell me, who are these little babies here? Introduce me with them.
So these babies, so Zudo's the little guy, Mavro's the big boy, the big black dog, and then Kayan is the white one. So they're all rescue dogs that I got from different rescue organisations. And Mavro is a little bit special needs. He lost his sight when he was 8 months old. So, but you can see he adapts well and lives a normal happy life.
Yeah, and I know that you put his names like depending of their personalities.
Yes.
So what does it mean, each name? Like
So Zudo means determined, which suits his personality because he's a very busy, intense personality. And then Kayan means like kind of like a helper or like warrior of the Persian realm. Okay. So they're normally like the leaders of a war, apparently that name means.
Okay.
And then Mavro just means like a peace and a calming, and it has kind of two meanings, which like the first one is just like peaceful and calm. And the second meaning, it also in Greek means black because he's a black dog. So slightly less creative meaning, but it's still like,
it's still very relevant.
And especially with the loss of sight, it's like his world is a different world. So yeah.
So what are the things that you love the most of each of them?
Well, we love and hate at times his intense personality. Sometimes it can get tough, but especially because he does struggle to tone himself down. But it's also like he's so out there and so friendly and just always like excited about everything. Like
he is excited now.
Just the smallest thing in life get him so excited, which I really love about him. Kayan's just really just gentle and just likes to be around. So he's just a nice, like calm nature. And then probably Mavro's playfulness. He always just wants to bring his toys and play and turn everything into fun. Like even when everyone's stressed and feeling horrible, he'll come and just bring you his toys. And like I know I was really upset when I had the diagnosis about his sight and, drove home crying, all upset. Like, this is like not what I was really expecting. And then get home and he's just like bringing me toys. It's like, oh no, it's fine. I already adjust. He'd already lost like 70% of his sight. So I think he was like, well, I already adjusted. And I reckon it's much easier for you that you are a dog trainer.
Yes. To be able to train them to understand the environment and where they are. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say he's a lot more in tune with just like people's emotions and different things going on. Like he'll notice the smallest sound or movement in the room because he's obviously just like learnt to tune in his other senses so much more. Yeah,
absolutely. So do you normally take them for walks, and what are the fun things that you like to do outdoors with them?
Yeah, so probably our favorite thing is like hiking. We all love to go out hiking, and we normally go to places where I can let them off lead and they can run. So Kayan and Zudo will run. Mav will run a little bit, wander. We haven't done it for a while. One of the things we used to do for fun as well was it's called dog sled racing, but it's like obviously we don't have snow here. So it's a bit of a weird thing with all these people with their dogs, and we just have scooters. They wear sledding harnesses and they pull you and you race other people in the forest. So
oh my God. But have you done it here in South Australia?
Yeah.
What about?
Normally Mount Crawford or Kaipo. So it's actually really fun. It's similar to dog sledding, but like we just because we're on dirt, have scooters and things with wheels, and the dogs still know like how to do it. So
much fun then.
Yeah.
So I know that a doggy went to an event last week, and that's why he got his
Yes, he
hair
got painted as a rainbow. Well, using like hair chalk as a rainbow, which I think he looks lovely as a rainbow.
Yeah.
He acts like he doesn't like it because he always has a grumpy face, but I think he secretly loves the extra attention. Yeah, so yeah, it's still there a little bit. It's faded a bit, but I did just tell the groomer at work that they were allowed to do whatever color they wanted and that it was just free will, and they really had a good time, getting onto it.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about what you do as profession.
So I run it's a dog behavioural training and doggy daycare centre. So we offer a range of different services, from helping dogs with like more intense behavioural issues and doing some really detailed behaviour modification and therapy to help them get through that. We also do things to help them with their social needs if they have trouble with socialising and handling different environments. Then we have daycare, which is like the fun service, puppy classes to help prevent people ending up with problems, or at least identify if there's something going on early. And then we've got a grooming salon and a range of different training classes as well. So like obedience, right through to advanced and off-lead training. So So I guess when I started, my goal was originally a veterinary nurse, and obviously we see a lot of stress dogs in a vet clinic and a lot of dogs that don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
When I started in the industry, there weren't a lot of options that provided enough support for both the dog and the owner. So I really, wanted to help initially just resolving behavior problems, and then as I started doing that, I wanted to be able to cater for everything. So that's why there's such a range of things that we do, because I really wanted to be able to find a way to have one space that we cater for everything that people need.
As your previous conversation, you said that you have this business for 10 years.
Yes.
So you have been able to build up
slowly,
all the services slowly until now.
And we've just been working on an online service as well, so that people that can't get to us can still get the information and learn. Yeah.
That's great. So where do you operate here in Adelaide?
So we're in Athol Park, which is near Woodville, sort of the industrial end of the Woodville area.
And if people want to obtain your services, they just go to that place and they find all the grooming, the training, all of that. That's amazing.
Yeah, or we also go out to people's house. So sometimes people have things that are specific to home, especially since COVID. Separation anxiety has become a really big issue for a lot of dogs, and that's where we have to go to the home to see what's happening with the home setup that's causing that.
So you mean since COVID, you mean because people return to their offices?
Yeah. And a lot of people got dogs during the time that they were working from home. So the dog got used to having someone 24/7, and then suddenly it changed. So that's probably something that a lot of people just didn't think about when they were getting a dog, that normally the reason dogs are fine when we leave is because that happened since they're a puppy, and so it's just normal. Whereas when it's happening a year later, 2 years later, it's not normal for them anymore, and it's a bit stressful.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that people should keep in mind now that they're working from the office more time? What are the things that you suggest to them that we can share with our audience?
So I guess just making sure if it's possible, they do a bit of a gradual return, so that it's not such a big shock that it's from having someone 24/7 to 8 hours a day they're gone. If they're getting a new puppy, making sure that's included in the early stage of socialization, that it's not just about meeting dogs and going out to meet people and places, but getting used to things like alone time, self-settling, self-regulation of their emotions. A lot of behavioural issues that we treat, the dog just doesn't have the ability to treat to regulate its own emotions. Often with separation anxiety, that's where we have other issues happen as well, where the dog gets protective or possessive of the owner because it just relies so heavily on that person to regulate its own emotions.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon it's a transition that you have to keep give to your pet in order for them to adjust to a new environment where they are not gonna be with their parents all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And, doing things like having playpens and a crate and things that teach the puppy from a young age that alone time is a normal situation and they can just have their own space to go to.
Yeah. But what do you suggest when people leave their dogs at home? They should live like in an open space or in a crate or in the patio, or where is the best place to leave them? What do you suggest?
I mean, it depends on the dog and where they're at. Like if it's a puppy, maybe like, a smaller space with a playpen in the yard so they're not getting into trouble or practicing unwanted behaviors. If it's an older dog, and it depends on the dog. If the dog has a lot of anxiety, a lot of them will struggle with a bigger space because it's more area for them to work themselves up. So, they'll pace and they'll whine and they'll stress themselves out. Whereas a lot of those dogs are going to be happier in a playpen or a crate where they don't feel like they've got anything to work them up. Obviously, making sure that they're getting adequate exercise before and after, and giving them food dispensing toys, giving them things to use, like mentally occupy themselves rather than trying to just focus on physical interactions. Yeah.
Yeah, as I was talking to you, what are the things that you suggest for people to get for mental stimulation for pets? What do you think that is like, could be like an addition to their toys? Like,
yeah, so look, if you can make like all feeding using toys or training, so they have to eat anyway, like putting their food in a bowl is really a waste of their time. Like it's gone in 5 seconds, then they're looking for other things to do. So using something that the dog needs and enjoys and is going to want during the day as part of their activities. So putting their food in a bunch of different food dispensing toys, scattering it in the yard. Like there's like licky mats and slow feeders that you can use for wet food now as well, or meat if you're using meats. So there's a range of different options, trying to practice like using bits of their food for training practice as well. So rather than, giving them their food and then trying to like reward them for other things later, using part of that as their rewards for their training.
I really I got a Jack Russell and he's very active. And some of the things that I try to do is like encourage him to get his food from puzzle toys or from different things where he have to just chase for the food. And I find that it's more interesting for him to do that instead of just cleaning a plate. He gets bored and sometimes he doesn't.
Then they cause trouble. And like giving them things to chew on, like depending on the breed as well, it's really good to know your breed. So if you've got a breed that's, motivated by chewing, giving them lots of really hard, tough chewing toys. If they love digging, giving them a sandpit to play in during the day and burying treats and toys in there. Like having a terrier, they love sniffing, so scattering things in the yard, bits of food and hiding things around for them to look for can be extremely entertaining, and it's using their natural instincts and drives.
Okay, that's good. So one of the questions that we had got from people who follow us is that they want to know how they can stop their dogs barking at home. Is there any way we can stop them doing that?
Yeah, there is. So I guess barking's such a big area. Like a lot of people just think about like the dog's barking, how do I stop it? And I would say this is like for just all round our approach to any behavioural problems. It's really important to investigate why the behaviour is happening. So it depends on why the dog is barking and what's motivating it to bark, because the first thing we need to think about is if a behaviour is happening and it's continuing and becoming more, something is reinforcing it, whether it's something we do, something in the environment, or the behaviour itself is reinforcing. So to stop barking behaviour, figuring out why, like if it's attention seeking, then removing attention when they bark is going to stop. If it's separation anxiety, they have to start to treat the separation anxiety, which means desensitizing from a lot of the triggers, building up lots of gradual leaving, making sure the dog also spends time away from you when you're home. So it's not, that the dog associates the only time that it can't have access to you is when you're going to be gone for a long time. So doing lots of short times that you leave. If they're territorial barking, then you've got to do some work on changing that behaviour and teaching them an alternative behaviour. So we always want to, if we're going to correct a behaviour, teach an alternative instead. And then you can just have boredom barking. So boredom barking would be, you know, giving them more things to do, keeping their mind occupied, making sure that they've got other things to occupy their brain.
Yeah, because I feel sometimes they do it for fun. Like because they don't have mind when he doesn't have anything to do. He just go and he see people
he just
walking,
likes it.
and he gets excited and start barking. So that's probably sometimes I feel that is more attention that he needs than actually, you know, like
So I mean, when it's attention seeking, they've got like, you have to break that reinforcement history, making sure they're not getting it. If they're barking when they see people walk past and they stop once the person walks past, that can sometimes be territorial as well, because it gets reinforced. When they bark, the dog doesn't know that the person was going to walk that way anyway. So the dog thinks, oh, look, I barked and they went away. So, so it's getting reinforced because the dog doesn't know all of these extra things that we know. Like, we know that person was going to walk that way regardless of what the dog did. The dog just thinks, well, look what I did. I got rid of that person. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah. So if there's like territorial behavior, you've got to do a bit of desensitizing for them to not think that they should be, you know, barking when someone walks. So it'd be teaching them to do something like go to their mat, and trying to replace an active behavior with a more passive behavior, so they know, you know, being calm in that situation is
so
better.
how does it work, like replacing one thing to another?
So the way, like, for example, if you were trying to teach a dog to go to its mat every time it saw a person walk past, you would cue the dog to go to its mat as a person walks past before they bark and reward them for that. And then you would keep repeating it and slowly phase out your cue, so you're not telling them anymore. So the person walking past becomes a cue for going to their mat.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we call like an environmental cue, where we teach the dog to respond to something in the environment. So we often do the same with doorbells. Dogs going silly at the doorbell is like, teach that the doorbell means go to your mat and lay down instead. So the doorbell becomes a cue for go to a mat and lay down.
It's like changing the cues.
Yes.
For what the dog needs to do when something happens.
And occasionally, depends on the behavior. Sometimes you do need to set up some short-term management strategies that stops them practicing the behavior when you can't be there or can't stop it, because obviously if you teach them 20% of the time go to the mat when you see a person, but 80% of the time it's working for them to bark, they're going to keep doing what gets the result 80% of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So what are the things that, another question that we got is like, what are the things that you should start teaching your puppy when they are in the early stages, so they it's easier for a pet parent to maintain it since they are puppies?
So I guess some of the main things, like on an obedience level, I would really heavily reinforce a recall as a puppy, because recalls, dogs when they're puppies don't really have that curiosity yet to wander away and leave you. It's like once they hit adolescence that they don't care as much anymore and they want to run off and do their own thing. So trying to get a really good recall and like heavily reinforce that when you can. Teaching like a strong sit command so that they know that that's a polite way to get things they want. Being able to wait for things. And I would normally get it like go to a spot or bed or a mat and lie down so that they can calm quite easily. On a behavioral level, I would say just exposure to a range of different people, different environments, different textures, you know, feelings under their feet. Really like think about handling as well, and getting them used to things like grooming and vet checks, especially, you know, with the oodle trend at the moment. Like, these dogs require a lot of maintenance for their coat and grooming. So if the first time they're groomed is like at 6, 7, 8 months old, it's really scary. There's all these different noises and people touching them in ways that they don't expect. Thinking about what your future life might hold. So if your future life is going to include children, then conditioning them, like positively conditioning them to a little bit more rougher handling, because children, especially toddlers, don't know, and it takes a while for them to learn how to handle a dog correctly. And like building up a positive association with that will help the dog then just become more tolerant and able to handle it.
And also there is another thing with puppies is that they are overexcited.
Yes.
They want to say hello all the time, run,
Yeah.
jump.
Yeah.
So that's another behavior that it would be good to manage since the beginning, I reckon.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really important thing and good point, is like teaching how to switch off, especially if you have an active working breed, because it's not normal for them to relax and switch off. So like the little guy of mine, he's a Kelpie mixed with like a few different things, but those breeds don't naturally relax. So the first couple of months of his life, a lot of it was just teaching him to relax, because obedience is easy for them to learn. He can learn obedience at any age, but switching off at a later age, you know, if he hasn't learned that early, that's when we can have things like anxiety and, you know, other behavioral problems surface because their brain is just so active and they didn't learn how to calm themselves down. So teaching them how to self-settle and calm down is really important. And like you said, you know, they want to go and meet everyone and see everything. Teaching them to do that on your terms and like making it that like people and dogs are exciting and it's fun and you can do that, but you need to focus on me first, because it's more important for you to listen to what I tell you, because we're obviously the ones in charge of their safety. And if we teach them early on to keep coming back to us, they're also going to trust us to handle and to look after their safety later in life if something does bother them.
Yeah. So how do I do that? Telling him like stay, or
so getting them to
taking them to sit.
Getting them to sit and wait. Doing a lot of like taking them to places where there are lots of people going around and getting them to learn to focus and look at you rather than to look at that, or to watch it but not expect to go up, and teaching them that those sort of rewards of meeting new people and dogs is on condition of good behavior. So you're asking them to sit and wait to be able to do it.
Okay. That's very good.
But having a dog that will focus on you, you know, we all want to be able to go to like exciting and busy places and know that if there's things our dog likes and we ask them to come back and be with us, that they will still do it. So that's why it's important that becomes a big foundation, is focusing on us.
Yeah, that's very important. And taking them, I reckon, in early ages out with you, even if you cannot put them on the floor.
Carrying
allow them to explore the, you know, the noises and see the people, even if you cannot put it on the floor because they are still puppies. I think that's a good idea. Or that worked for me, because now my dog is not scared of going out and seeing other dogs or people. He loves it.
Exactly.
That's good. So what are the things that people look for when they, like the more frequent things that people look for when they come to you? Like, is there anything specific that people are looking?
I guess
in terms of training and behavior.
So as far as training, like most people are looking for just having well-mannered dogs that listen when they're asked. Behavior, we see a range of different issues. I would say one thing that we do help a lot of clients with is just helping like rehabilitate their dog that doesn't know how to socialize. So whether that's that they don't know how to socialize with other dogs or people, like helping them get through that and getting to a point, because a lot of these dogs have the ability and the interest, but their fears are overriding that. So all we're seeing on the surface is a dog that looks aggressive every time it sees a dog, but with a lot of strategic behavioral modification, you know, a lot of these dogs end up being regular dogs coming to our daycare and playing and having a good time, which is really, you know, something that a lot of us want to see our dogs doing. And then obviously we also deal with a lot of dogs that have like, you know, fears and insecurities when it comes to new people and other anxiety related behaviors. So the aggressive behavior is something that we work with a lot. And I think like a lot of people mislabel the dogs, which is like unfair, because then we don't treat them correctly. So the aggressive behavior stems from something else. There's either some fear or some anxiety or something going on. And if we're just focusing on, oh, well, it's an aggressive dog, that's not going to help the dog get better. So,
sometimes it's the matter of looking at what probably we are doing wrong. that could be affecting the dog as well.
Yeah, and sometimes it can just be, it happens a lot with rescue dogs, that it was just lack of exposure that caused them to become unsure about the world. And then when they go to a new home, people kind of, feel sorry for them, and then they don't give them any guidelines or boundaries or rules. And a dog without boundaries is like a toddler without boundaries. They just don't know how to behave. They don't know how, or now there's like that trend to kind of humanize the dogs a little bit too much, which can also cause some problems, because if we don't recognize and respect that they're dogs and they can only behave like a dog, and we're trying to treat them like a human and expect them to understand how to behave like a human, they're going to get confused and they're going to have different behaviors surface.
Yeah. So what are those sort of things that you feel that people are like exceeding and treating them as humans?
So I guess like it's such a hard line, because you like it's so good, and I include my dogs very much in my life. So there's a difference. I think people think, oh well, but humanizing them is including them in your life. No, it's not. It's just recognizing dogs can't behave like humans. So when you're communicating with them and trying to teach them different things, you're doing it in a way that makes sense to a dog. So, instead of expecting the dog knows not to do this, like, oh, well, he knows not to do this, this, and this, and why doesn't he just not do it? It's like, well, because you've given your dog access to something that he's really enjoying. It doesn't know that that's a bad thing to do. That's a bad thing to do for us as a human. So, yeah, I guess that's where like understanding it's not about excluding. Like, we don't want to go back to dogs just being outside and not being a part of our life. I think it's important. They are a social animal. They're supposed to be a companion to us. They're not supposed to be one of us. So understanding that they're our companions and they should be included in our life, but they need clear directions, guidelines, and boundaries so they know how we expect them to behave in that life. Because what we also need to understand is that this lifestyle and this world that we've brought them into isn't the norm for them. Like, it's not normal for them, and to adjust to behave in a way that's appropriate for the human world, they need a lot of direction on that, what that looks like. We need to tell them what that looks like, because they only know what a dog's supposed to do.
And I reckon it's for us to also don't make them to suffer in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Expecting a dog to understand, things like the working from home and being with them all the time and keeping them close to you, and then suddenly it's changed. How do they know and prepare themselves for that change, because it doesn't make sense to them? So knowing what you're going to have to teach them to adjust to, our lifestyles are getting busier and crazier, so there's a lot of adjustment that's not the normal for a dog. So just helping them understand what they need to do to fit in.
And also sometimes I consider that if I educate my dog enough, if I'm going away and I leave the dog with a friend or someone else, the dog is gonna behave well. And sometimes
exactly,
the dog is not gonna be the whole time with you, so you need to make sure that the dog behaves well with everyone else as well.
And that things aren't stressful for them. Even just simple things like crate training, there's still a lot of people that don't feel comfortable with crate training, but what it does do is, like, if they had to go to the vet and have surgery and they are in a crate, they're not stressed now. If they've never been in a crate and the first time it happens is when they're hurt and they're feeling sick, and they're disorientated, it's a really traumatic experience. So to train them that a crate is a good thing and is actually just a spot that they can go in when they need to have a break is a really positive thing. It teaches them things like, if you're having children in the house, like if I want to get away from the child because it's grabbing me, I can go to my crate. So just knowing that they're going to be okay and they're going to know how to handle that.
So thank you, Amy, for being here. For those who wants to know more about you and what you do, where they can find you.
So it's ABT. So if they just look us up online, Advanced Behavioural Training or ABT, or if they can't, like our location's not convenient, ABT Plus is the online program that they can sign up to, and they can work through training or behavioural modules through there.
Okay. We are going to put your contact details in the show notes of this podcast so people can find you as well.
No worries. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
having
for-
us here. We've really
Yes.
enjoyed it. And
So
yes,
much fun, and everyone is relaxed
they're all
now.
chilling out now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Pawsome Companion. If you have any further questions for our experts, feel free to leave them in the show notes or reach out to me directly. And if you are a pet expert who would love to contribute to this podcast, we will be thrilled to hear from you. Don't forget to follow us, and if you enjoyed today's episode, we will really appreciate a 5-star review. Thanks again, and we will see you at the next episode.